So the question is, how do we drill these things? How do we get better at home? 15 minutes a day goes a long way, is what I tell every lesson that comes in here. The stance, the posture, these things that we need to build off of, kind of our step one of the golf swing. You know, understanding that at home, my biggest drill is grip a club as much as you can. You know, Tiger talks about before a tournament, he's trying to touch a club 1,000 times a day. Now, that could sound like a lot, but if you're at home watching a game, you know, football, World Series, any of those things, you could be sitting on the couch and every time you are watching a play, you could be gripping a club and sitting there double checking that your grip is correct. You can buy a grip trainer, a perfect grip as I call it, and you can just grip this thing, you know, 100 times a day, and that might even take 10, 15 minutes. The idea being is, you know, if you set it up correctly, so put it on there correctly, you could teach yourself a great grip in a short amount of time. The stance, the posture, all that takes for us is a wall, you know, maybe a mirror, hitting golf balls with a teaching professional, just double checking those things out. But the majority of the time in a lot of lessons for, you know, better players is those fundamentals will kind of skew a little bit and they'll, you know, just get a little off. The posture will get a little off. Maybe they're a little taller. Maybe they're bending too much. Maybe the arms are going out too much because we're hitting the ball a little bit weird on the club face. But we always want to keep those things in check because when we have a good grip, when we have a good posture, when we have a good stance, we have that baseline of golf figured out and we can build off of that. So the first one, when it comes to the posture, is I've found this to be the most effective at home because you're not going to hit one, but it helps you figure out a couple things. So the idea would be, you know, finding a good solid wall. You know, again, maybe you're watching a football game or watching TV at home, and you can watch it as you're working on your posture. So you take a golf club, you put it against the wall, you take your foot, your left foot, move it right up against that golf club head. You do the same on the right. Then you push your butt kind of against the wall. And then again, one of my favorite things to do is check my knee bend. So making sure that it's right on top of the shoe laces. So giving myself that slight knee bend. And then from there, I'm going to bend from the waist and let my arms hang out to my toes. That tells me how far out I need to bend. So if I'm here and I'm letting my arms relax and I'm bending from the waist, I can see from my angle that my arms are hanging over my toes. Okay, now I can grip a club. The idea here is if I did this every day, that is my posture. So if I were to get here and I had a driver, the driver head would be further away from me than a wedge or an iron, but I would be in the same stance and posture. And that would give me a good reference of how far away I need to stand. Where does the ball need to go? So again, I'm in here, set up, slight knee bend, bending from the waist. I can see my arms going over my toes, grip it. This is a 7-iron, so this is where my 7-iron needs to be in relation to my body. Again, if I had a driver, it'd be further out. So learning how far to stand away from the ball is a big lesson point in the beginner lessons because we're basing, most of the time, the average golfer is basing everything on contact. So they're moving that variable around and it becomes harder to hit the ball in the center more frequently. So if we have that mastered, then we can move on to the swing plane, the club path, the club face, all these other things. But if we don't get that baseline right, it's hard to move on. So again, really simple drill where you're just going at home and you're setting up the same way every time. That just sends us in a great path down the road. Now the foot flare is going to be more of, you know, a field drill, but one of the things that I recommend for everybody when they're warming up is setting up in that posture with the club behind their back and then allowing myself to turn. If I'm feeling resisted in my turn, you know, for an example, if I have my feet closer together, or pointed inwards, I'm going to turn less. It's more strenuous on my body. If I allow my feet to flare here, I have a more of an open turn. It feels better on my hips, feels better on my back. Even if I bring this right foot in here, you know, I still can turn a little bit, but I'm going to be able to fire through the ball a lot better. So this is kind of where we can figure out how much flare feels good for us, because in this drill, the main goal is to set up in your posture, and can you turn this club, the grip, or the club head past our left toe? So if I got my feet pointed in, it's hard for me to get to my left toe or past it. So you can see how minimal my turn is. If I open up my feet, I'm allowing myself to turn a little bit easier. So that might be our number one reference of, man, I really need to flare my feet when I'm set up in my posture so I could turn better and it's not so tight on my back. You know, as we get older, it wouldn't be uncommon for our feet to flare more so we could turn a little bit better. You know, most of the kids that I'm around, I kind of bring their feet in a little bit because they tend to overturn. But with, golfers of a much higher age, I'm always opening up the feet so they could turn a little bit better. So those are the drills that I would do at home to really hammer out the grip, sitting there watching TV or hanging out and just gripping a club, making sure you're going through the steps of, is it diagonal? Am I pulling my grip over? Am I engaging this pad on the top of the club? Can I see the logo? Do I want to see the logo? Getting here. Is my hand covering my right hand? Is it covering my left thumb? Do I have that trigger finger in place? Am I getting the grip in here? Okay, so doing that at home, 15 minutes a day, just gripping the club. Now we know how to grip it the next time we hit balls. The stance, the posture, going to a wall, putting that club right behind your foot, measuring, making sure I'm the same distance away from the golf ball. Getting that posture is paramount to pretty much everything we do. And then that stance is more of a feel thing. What feels best for me? Am I able to turn pretty well with a, neutral toe, or do I need to flare them out? So doing all of those things at home allows us to move on in that lesson progress.